Hey folks, back again for Module 3, and if we can look a little bit, this will help you with your guiding. A couple of things that are listed out here on the Module 3. Of course, there's a lot of information to look at. I would like for you to be sure that you're taking a look at Deirdre Johnson's presentation regarding academic writing. She is a really good contact and somebody that really does a lot for the university, and she's over in the Center for Academic Excellence. So over in the CFAA, if you'll take a look at her, this is a little bit dated, but there's also additional information listed out here for some academic writing and tutoring tips, because we would I guess we're expecting a lot from you all, and we would like for you all to succeed at that. So if you can keep that in mind. What do I want to say? Let's see here. Give me just a second. We'll pull this up. So we do have, social behavior and theory and the roots that we want to take a look at. Let me move this over here because this is a little bit, I don't really want. There we go. That looks better, doesn't it? All right. So I won't go through all of these. These have been updated, but what we would kind of like you to concentrate on this week, of course, the theory and the roots behind that. And of course, these are concepts. There are things that go along with this, definitions and propositions. And really, since we're the type of animals that we are, we like to look at things in a systematic way, a phenomenon. We like to classify. And so this helps us in understanding. So, behavior theory, we can look at this. We talk about rooted in psychology and social psychology, but there are other fields that have contributed to this. And so you could be thinking about what other fields have contributed to that. We are looking for evidence base. We would like for that to be, this is what's crucial. Of course, when using theory a lot, which is what we're doing this summer, this helps us in creating intended change, and we can also make sure that what we are applying to a healthcare setting or behavior is good. And it also means that knowing your population and knowing who you're wanting to work with and to influence your program is going to be tailored to specific needs for that particular population. And it also answers, when we use theory, why, what, and how health problems should be addressed. So, there's not a whole lot. You're going to see a lot of different theories. And actually, for some of you who have been in other fields and other disciplines, you're probably going to be able to come up with some theories that maybe we don't even use here, mainly in public health. And so it would be nice to do that. And so there's not one single theory that dominates health education, because we in public health tend to take from a lot of different disciplines. And so conversely too, maybe it's just not one theory that you're going to use to address a problem. So we might be looking at more than one theory. So, but how do you know what kind of theory to use? And so, like this week, you are thinking about your problem, and then the next thing is going to be thinking about an intervention. And before you think about that intervention, you're also going to be addressing a theory or theories that you want to use. So, as the slide actually says, a useful theory makes assumption about behaviors, problems, target population or environment. Make sure it's logical. Make sure it's consistent with everyday observations that we know. One of the reasons that you look and see what other people have done is because so that you can see what has been used in other successful programs and what's been supported by past research. In the ways that we use theory in public health, of course, we do this for assessment. We are looking to assess or explore a relationship affecting behavior. We do it when we talk about planning or evaluation of programs, or formative or qualitative studies too. We will use that. So there are some basic assumptions in the Western tradition of theory, and of course, order and regularity. Predictability, those are things that are helpful to us. Causality is something that we would want to consider, and so you can look here, the conditions that are met to show causality. We have traditions, the primacy of empirical data, positivist epistemology associated with Western tradition hold that what we know comes from our senses. These are the things that are observable, that are tangible evidence that we can have. And so, we don't always get it right, but every time we make changes with the scientific method, we're moving towards a better understanding and a more fuller understanding of what we have. And then, of course, there's behaviorist psychology, and you can look at this. And, even with cognitive psychology, Piaget's stage of development, there are lots of different things that come into play here. What about humanistic psychology? This might be something that you could consider as well, too. And then our good buddy Maslow, and of course we see Maslow a lot, and hopefully you've had some introduction to him. So when we start looking about the hierarchy needs and what people have, their basic human needs, their safety and security, love and belonging, esteem, and then of course self-actualization, and how do we get people to that point? And so when we think about social psychology, it focuses a lot on individual experiences. And of course, social psychology is more interested in the interactions between individuals and a group. And so when you think about this, think about, what kind of issues come to mind when you think about this. And we talk about this a lot because social psychology has had considerable influence on health behavior theory, such as social cognitive theory, which we use a lot, theory of planned behavior, social networking theory, and others. And so you can see here that this was developed by Bandura, where you had overt factors, you had the environment, personal factors, and all of these are interplaying with each other, and reciprocal determinism to account for human behavior. Sociology is also part of the mix here, where we're looking at society and its phenomena. And so this also comes into play with theory and also into public health practice. Cultural anthropology, focusing on the role of culture in human behavior, the way that life patterns are organized. And so if you think about this, what other concepts might this include? What might be something that you think about here? And then you can see here that there are some other influences on health behavior. So when we think about this, of course, you're all on your own here, but, think about how do you define health? And so that would be something that kind of guides what you are doing. Since you're not working with a partner in class, what are your definitions of health? How would you define health? And then what particular aspects of health do you focus upon? Are you more interested in the individual? Are you looking for interpersonal relations, things that come to play for community or national? And then, there's definitions of health across cultures. Of course, if you're ever here in Lamb Hall, you do see this at the very front of the building: state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. But there are different views of health. And so, I know it sounds like we're playing semantics, but it does help us. So a lot of times U.S. health is guided by the biomedical model, where we're looking at disease. And so consequently, this affects how we actually look at treatment, making treatment within a person. But, across different cultures, there are different ways of viewing health. And so they give some examples here with China and Greece, and also China, and even some differences there with the Tibetan folks. Now, even here, a Native American approach based health upon religion, a holistic view, living in harmony with oneself and one environment. These are all things that we could consider, because depending upon the people that we're working with or the target population that we are looking to influence, we might need to shift our view of what exactly health is, because that definition is going to change with the people that we're working with. So, a question that you could ask yourself is, what tradition does your definition of health tend to mirror? And there's no right or wrong answer here, but it's not a bad idea to have this in mind, because it lets you know where you're coming from. And so could this potentially be a bias that we have, or is there something that you would want to consider so that you have a more open view regarding this? And then even here regarding ecology and biological systems, you know, thinking about the types of relationships that we would want to include when we look at the study of how living organisms function with interdependent systems. Human ecology, of course, refers to the same idea applied to human systems. And so multiple determinants of health, the role of the environment and behavior, these are all things that we would like you to think about. And then lastly, of course, when we think about the human ecosystem, you can see here from an ecological point of view, you could be looking at the individual, you could be moving out into the human-built environment, which is important. What about the social, cultural environment? And then the natural, physical, biological environment. How do all these interplay, and what changes when we go to define a health problem, and where are they based upon that? So the slides aren't a whole lot. Of course, you've got some reading that you will do this week. If you will do that, please consider doing that. And I look forward to your comments and your solution paper, part 1, that is due this week. And I hope everybody has a good week.